Welcome back to the NutriMedical Report. As I mentioned, you better be sitting down, as I say, with your tray tables in the upright and locked position. You better be taking your Combine, which you mentioned in the last hour, because I got some, they say there's bad news, there's real bad news, and there's cataclysmic news. Well, this is even worse. And there's always a solution. The solution starts with Jesus and with God. Now, let me tell you, I'm doing a lot of praying. It's like, oh my gosh. I'm going to give you the short list, and it's not so short. We got the H7N9 plague spreading around China that they're trying to cover up, and it's exploding and filling all the hospitals. It's only a matter of days, weeks, months before it comes here, and we're going to have the most deadly super plague ever. We're talking about ever in human history.
It's advanced biowar.
Right. Then we have the novel coronavirus too. They called MERSA whatever NOV.
Which started in Saudi Arabia. That's coming from
and now it's spreading across.
But it's advanced biowar.
Eastern Saudi Arabia is exploding.
These are warning shots.
Right. Well, this is the first step. Then we got Fukushima Daiichi when it exploded with a superquake 5.2, which we don't know whether it was triggered off or artificially whatever. But it doesn't matter. The radiation level was always running here on my detector, and I've talked to other people, 2 times background most of the time. Once in a while it would blurp up because they were doing something over there or something blew and they had a burp of radiation. It's now always running 3 times background, and for 5 days after that earthquake, you took 2 days to get here, the radiation level rose to 5 times background. Then we got the San Onofre nuclear reactor up just 12 miles from where I live, where they say the reactor core is degrading and could go critical even if they don't turn it on. And if they turn it on, it will immediately China syndrome. Then we got the bond market blow, which is just hanging by a thread, and the manipulation of gold, which indicates that the reason why the stock market is hitting 15,000 isn't because it's doing so great because of the economy. It's because the dollar is being destroyed by Obama and Bernanke.
They're also flooding it. The market, I mean, they've been manipulating the stock market for a decade. And,
right. And the big topper... And the big topper is the usurper in chief, the abomination that shall desolate in the White House, and the witch of the West, literally Hillary Rotten Clinton, putting up the punching bag of Susan Rice. We've got Benghazi now with Mr. Hicks now and the other members of the State Department literally hanging their cojones out the window, telling the truth as American patriots. And if they don't remove Obama and Hillary Clinton, and there's consequences with this, there's not going to be a 2016 election. He's just going to smile like a late-night TV host from hell, and he's just going to say, I'm your prez. He's going to be a permanent friggin' fixture.
Anyway, because I think we're...
I'm telling you, I really think people need to get down their face before the Most High God and pray to God, because this is not going to be that maybe it's going to soon hit the fan. It's hit the fan. The only problem is like when you fall and your parachute doesn't work. It's not the falling that's bad. It's the stopping. It's the stopping, okay? It's the stopping. So now I'm going to turn it over to you. Tell us what. Yeah, it's the falling is kind of like, hey, this is pretty cool. It's the stopping. The problem is we've already fallen from the plane, and our parachutes are all tangled, and there's no way in hell we're going to get them untangled, because unless God does it, because things are so screwed up. And I take lots of nutraceuticals to keep my blood pressure and everything down. And I have to take my, to remember, because I'm so busy, that I take my Combine regularly. But let me tell you, I have to scramble, because there's times when I'm there literally having panic attacks, thinking, God, like one of the ancient prophets, Lord, if you can take this cup of horror away from me, please. I can't handle anymore some days. I just think, what the heck do they do next?
I know exactly how that is, because I have been dealing in this stuff now for several years. I've seen it coming, as have you.
You have one thing here and there, and
we're trying to warn people at the top of our voices, and people are hearing, but sometimes you feel like your voice in the wilderness calling out,
Yeah, exactly.
We are moving inexorably closer to the Third World War.
Well, we have Israel now attacking Syria, and Syria is
insanity, but it's demonic insanity.
Okay, well,
here's the good thing. Yes, it's going to get worse, but then it's going to get infinitely better because Christ will return. Now, that's a little ways down the road, but, it's...
Let's put it this way. There's a nice cool bath on the other side, but there's a 30-yard run over hot coals. That's the bad part. And there's a dragon behind you trying to eat you, and the dragon behind you about to eat you, and if you don't run over the hot coals towards a nice cool bath and a nice protection, you're done. The dragon's going to just eat you as an hors d'oeuvre. And, the latest attack by the Israelis, these wacky Israelis, and I couldn't believe this in the news. The United Nations even has, this is how bad it is, the United Nations can't get the story straight, so they tell the truth that NATO and America trained and gave chemical weapons to the Al-Qaeda, al-Nusra terrorists. And Obama and his yahoos tried to say that, because Bashar Assad used chemical weapons, we have to set up an air attack and knock out, right on the ground, their planes, we're going to set up an air no-fly zone. And what do you think the Russians are going to do? Do you want to see a Yukon hypersonic cruise missile?
The Russians have the S-300 system, and the media has hyped that. Our Secretary of State Kerry has been in Moscow, and we've come to kind of an agreement. We're going to work for negotiations. Then today, that was yesterday. Today we came out and said, Assad has to go first, and the Russians said, no, sorry, Charlie, that's not going to work. But what they didn't tell you, and some publications did, but most of the mainstream media ignored this little minor facet of the negotiations between the United States and Russia. The scheduled meeting between Putin, the president of Russia, and the U.S. Secretary of State, Putin made the Secretary of State sit in the lobby for 3 hours cooling his heels.
Did you know why? Because the Russians are so fed up with us because we don't do. Listen, put it this way: the Inquisition. Okay, when they did the Inquisition, they would tell you something that to any idiot was positively not true, and then he would beat you until you agreed to the untruth. And that's what the media and what this administration, Obama and Susan Rice and Hillary Clinton, are doing now publicly to us on a daily basis. They beat us and tell us, if you don't believe this, who the hell do you think you are? Even though it's obvious that our government are funding and paying for al-Nusra, al-Qaeda, arming them with weapons now, and giving them chemical weapons.
Is hiring, now, there are some people that are simply desperate for money, but we're hiring some of the worst trash in many countries on the planet, in the Middle East and North Africa. Right. We're giving them rudimentary training, and we're putting them in there. They are raping people. They are killing and butchering children, old people, women, people that have surrendered, people that weren't even fighters that have surrendered. They've gorged priest eyes out. There was a church that dated back to 50 A.D., almost 2,000-year-old Christian church that they destroyed. It's just there's no limit because they're sending in the worst sociopaths. They're taking people in Saudi Arabia that are scheduled to be beheaded, and they're saying, here's your choice. We chop your head off, or we give you an AK-47 and you go fight.
And by the way, they're sending children in there.
What do you think you're going to get when you do that?
Right. They're sending poor, innocent children into the battle with no proper training. And you know what the Syrians are doing? Cutting them up. The Syrian army.
The Syrians have been mowing them down. It's just they keep coming and keep coming because they're offering $100,000 a head for these guys to go in.
Okay, well, and Gerald Celente, you quote him at the top of your list here. And Gerald, by the way, I respect this guy. When he says the attack by Israel means that World War III is on its way, we're not moments to midnight. We're not seconds anywhere. We're milliseconds. We're close to it.
We're extraordinarily close.
I am, let's put it this way, thank God I'm a believer, but I'm freaked out. I'm freaked out. I mean, I can tell you, I've never been freaked out on any show in the past. I am completely freaked out. And without the faith in the Most High God, which is going to keep me together, and my supplements to help me to stay calm, but all these things combined, thank God Jesus is coming. welcome back. And Tim, you're on a really good Tim rant. We're talking about these things, and you know, the reason is you can be freaked out but still be a believer, okay? What I tell people is, it says in the Bible that without faith you can't please God. Now, a lot of people think they have faith, and I want to give you a wake-up call. All you have is love. You get love from God, you give it back to God, you pray to Him to give you faith to get through this crap, or whether you got a serious medical problem or cancer or whatever, and He gives you faith. Faith only comes from God, because faith means the faithful one talks to you and you get a confirmation in your spirit that the one who created you cares. The one that He's going to give you a pathway.
God, what you need to do is get the book of Revelations out, and you need Revelation out, and you need to look at the stuff that's been happening, the stuff that's happening right now, and then just step back from the forest and look at it, and you'll say, "Oh my Lord, this is happening. This is really happening."
By the way, this is not future. We're not talking about the future anymore.
It's really happening. And
by the way, we're not talking about.
Well, maybe at least you'll see. Yeah, well, there is a devil, so I guess there is a God. Because the devil sure is playing hell with everything right now.
We've been doing this for years, and you're the main contributor over on our network, on our live stream channel. And I can tell you, other than me, and I can tell you that
I haven't done much lately because, like you, I am freaked out about it. It's easy to sit here and talk. I get on there sometimes. It just freaks me. And I admit, when I see this stuff coming, I've seen 21, 22 years ago, at the lead-in to the first Gulf War, Bibi Netanyahu was an assistant information minister for Israel, and he would come on, and all the networks had him on because he spoke American English so well, and he was such a good liar. And I told my late wife, I said, "He's the one." And she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "He's the one." I said, "Someday he will be the leader of Israel, and he will begin the Third World War." And she kind of looked, well, begun. Okay, in other words, you've gone around the bend. But by golly, he is the leader of Israel, and he is the one. He is the biblical Antichrist. He is the one that's behind this, is pushing this. Him and, of course, the global banking cartel, who desire World War III because they've loaded the entire world with such an incredible amount of debt since they started the Federal Reserve 100 years ago and so forth. The debt is just overwhelming. It's unsupportable. Math doesn't change. You might have $100 million, but if you spend money like a fool, eventually you're going to be hundreds of millions of dollars into debt. And that's where we are today, and that's where they wanted, and now they're losing control. But they've got to have a new global war, World War III. They started the other two. They got to have a new global war so they can consolidate what they've got, keep what they've got, and they want to eliminate most people. And why? Because they're minions. They're of Satan, and he knows his time is up. And it's all spiritual, and if you recognize that God is a loving Father. He's here for you. He knows everything that's happening. Every subatomic particle He knows, and He knows what's in our heart, and He knows where we're headed, and He knows how tough it is. He's delayed it. He worries about it. He knows everything that's going to happen because He's in eternity. But that doesn't mean He doesn't care. He cares immensely. But things are so bad, we, the human race, allow the parasites, allow the sociopaths, the psychopaths to take control. And we've let this evil grow and metastasize. And it's got to reach to a certain point and burn itself out. And when it does, He will come back. Christ Himself will come back, and things will be made right. And that's really where we're at. And we've been talking about this coming. At one point, if you remember, a year or two ago, we said, it's an iceberg on the horizon, and then it was getting closer and closer. Then you could smell it. Well, it's much more than on the horizon now.
Exactly. Now, of course, Obama has visited Texas twice because he knows the Texans are fed up with the federal government. And by the way, every year they have to vote, usually around the summer, before the summer session, they have to vote to stay in the Union. Most people don't realize the Lone Star State literally has to vote to stay in America every year, or it automatically by default becomes a separate country.
They also have the right to separate into 5 states if they want to.
Right. And by the way, here's what happens. If Texas goes, There is no America. We don't care about the other 50 states. If Texas goes, America is history.
Well, the people that are in power right now are so incredibly evil and have been. I mean, you've had the worst trash imaginable for a couple decades in the White House, in the Congress, and there are a few good people in Congress, but most of them would sell their mother for enough money, and I mean that quite literally. They are, and it's by design. They don't want people in there that have a conscience. They don't want people in there that care about the country. They want people in there that will take their money and do what they're told to do.
Have you heard the latest about Bill giving the Department of Homeland Security Secretary virtually unlimited discretion to waive any manner of crimes, ICE, which the Immigration Council warns Congress? Any. Is that crazy?
How about I can't.
Okay, listen to this. Hillary Clinton.
I mean, they were given blanket immunity. These are the people that are. They've got a thing in wheat now, genetically modified wheat that reprograms that changes your DNA.
Right, we know that. Anybody eating wheat now is crazy. In fact, we're going to bring on the doctor who talks about fat belly.
Wheat or corn in it.
Right. So here is Hillary Clinton accepts Public Service Award on day of Benghazi hearings. So yesterday we have former State Department Executive Hicks, who was over in Libya, in Tripoli, and he said it was the most disgusting thing he's ever experienced. He was very proud of his job. Right up to that time in Benghazi, it was a terrorist attack. And we got this witch of the West, Hillary Clinton, slides right through and she gets an award. Beverly Hills former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton awarded at the Beverly Hills Gala to much fanfare on Wednesday as she prepared to accept an award for her public service. Wow.
That's public service, all right. Sure.
Yeah, that's what, I mean, the media is in the back pocket. Literally, Obama could literally do an abortion on air on a late-night TV show, and if the baby survived, kill it with scissors like Gosnell, and people would just clap and say, wow. What a great host. What a great president, man. This is the guy you want to run in your country. And God is there. He's ready to kind of, he's ready to zap our country, man. The fact that we don't remove this monster,
well,
if he's not
Obama? Who is his mother? Who is his father? Where was he born? Exactly when and where did he go to school? What years? How could he get a scholarship as a foreign national and claim to be an American citizen? If you're going to run for president or vice president, there are certain requirements that the U.S. Constitution puts on you, and that's been in since the beginning of the Constitution. Now, it's not kind of if, maybe, somehow, or if we feel like it will look there. It is an absolute requirement, and he has never proven what he has proven when they supply documentation, and the documentation has clearly been proved to been a forgery. He has a very spooky, i.e., intelligence agency background.
Listen, the spook agencies have taken over the presidency. When I come back, I want to open up with Tim Tebow, a little change here in mood because it's so. Maybe I'll get a few laughs of this, but it's not funny. Tim Tebow blackballed by the NFL. Back in a moment. Welcome back, and we're going to have Chris Harris on in a second, but I want to mention something I think is particularly disgusting about the NFL. The NFL, of course, came up last year with Bob Costas and his attack on people's right to own guns. And now the damn NFL is blackballing Tim Tebow. And I just want to read this article here. It's posted up from drudgereport.com. Journalists who experienced the wrath of the Tebow Nation, mostly for passing along the slings and arrows voiced by various NFL players, coaches, and talent evaluators. I'm well aware that many devotees of the world's most celebrated unemployed quarterback carry a heavy persecution complex. By the way, he's number 1 out of 40 athletes. That's the most popular athlete in 2013 in history. He's number 1. Not number 2 or 10 or 9 or whatever. 9 days after Tebow was released by the New York Jets, it's become increasingly clear that the ultra-popular quarterback who has hijacked many a news circle has no viable landing spot. No NFL team seems to want him as a starter backup, converted H-back or fake punk decoy. And it's not like he's fending off big money offers from Canada either. Now, here's the interesting part. Tebow Mania is at least partly to blame. As much as, in this, by the way, Tebow Mania is based on him being a Christian, like doing the Tebow with the fingers pointing to God when he literally resurrected the dead as a doornail, like Jacob Marley, the Denver Broncos. And then they didn't even keep him as a backup quarterback to the current quarterback of the Denver Broncos. So you can tell toward the end of the season, although, the current quarterback is a great quarterback, but he's had 3 neck surgeries. If he has one more injury to his neck, he's not just going to be going home. He's going to be going home as a quad. Okay? So you have to understand, as a doctor that's worked with people that have had spinal injuries and fancy surgery, and he had the best in the world, even had stem cells therapy, he gets another injury, he's going to be a mess. And let me tell you, you need somebody like Tebow that thinks out of the box to be there. Instead, they don't show the respect of this man because he's a Christian. That's the kind of crap we get from our government, just like they wanted to put forward ideas to see if they can persecute our military by saying if you evangelize inside the military, we're considering setting up a process to court-martial you if you talk about Jesus.
That's for the Christian ministers and Catholic and Orthodox priests who are military officers and chaplains.
Right.
And they've told them that. Now, can you imagine telling a preacher or a priest you can't evangelize, you can't spread the word of Christ? And that's
I'm telling you, I've had it with our government. I'm at the top now. Well, the reason why I'm kind of freaked out is I'm ready now in warrior position. I'm in Braveheart position. I'm holding up my wooden pike, and the heavy horses are coming at us because this kind of crap with Tim Tebow is a good example. If you got an excellent, a good man, probably one of the best examples of what a real man is, and they treat him with disrespect. This is sick.
Absolutely, and
total disrespect.
It's very well like. Here's the thing, and the media doesn't like to really discuss this, but you know what? Even though our morality has gone to hell and everything else, the majority of Americans are still Christians.
Yeah, there's a way back, but it's called repentance, and repentance requires the soap of believing in Jesus and the water of a change in your behavior. And if you don't combine the water with the soap, guess what? It has no effect. It doesn't take off the dirt. I want to switch gears now to Chris Harris. And we got some very scary and weird news to tell you. So, Chris, let's go from the top. We've got the insider article from San Onofre, which is literally 12 miles from where I'm sitting in my studio. And hopefully the complete shutdown. But by the way, this plant, even though it's shut down, from the engineer that came out, it's a 22-year engineer at the facility, he says, even if it is not reactivated, it can go critical before December. We have really, and this is, by the way, on national news. This is on with a face blacked out, or morphing his voice. This is very freaking scary, and people don't know that it doesn't even require an earthquake. The design is basically banging those tubes together, and the seals are continuing to degrade even as the plant is still running, but it's not generating electricity. And if they restart it, he says, it's a guarantee the thing is going to go China syndrome, which means a massive radiation release, a massive evacuations of millions of Californians. Massive.
Los Angeles, pack your bags and go.
No, not just L.A. I mean, we're talking about everybody here in Southern Cal, which is around 4.5 million, San Diego, our area, everybody right up through Orange County, right through Los Angeles. We're talking about upwards of 20 million people could be affected or more.
Good.
And these idiots, these asses, want to do this kind of stuff. Chris, tell us what you think about this. And I know that luckily it's not a boiling water reactor, because that would be considerably more dangerous. But the fact is that they are leaking. This is a report from this engineer. And if they turn it on, they're going to have a massive radiation release, because these tubes are banging against each other. They changed the engineering design. And Mitsubishi Heavy Industries is not being called to task. Our government, Obama's still flying around playing golf, seeing Beyonce and Jay-Z, still now wearing a Texas hat down there with no cattle down in Texas, visiting twice.
All hat, no cattle.
Yeah, no hat, no cattle. I mean, damn it. I'm getting so sick of this stuff. I need an anti-nausea. I can't even watch Obama talk. But I start to retch, actually. There's a spiritual induction of nausea that's so overwhelming, just seeing this monster parade around like some narcissistic, what I call devil.
Well, I don't try to bring daily, nuclear news there to your attention unless, of course, it has really huge ramifications. And when San Onofre hit the news, I looked at that and I said, right away, I said, this plant is in danger of never running again or never being allowed to run again. And right now, I don't see any justification for its restart. I haven't seen any proof that there's been significant corrective action.
No, but first off, they didn't apply for relicensure, re-engineering of the design. They never pulled out these old steam turbines, which were engineered with faulty, lying, trying to pretend it's like for like by adding a lot more steam tubes and changing the actual faceplate that attaches the tubes to the reactor core. Everything about this smells, and these idiots try to keep pushing this from the Southern California Edison that owns this plant. These people are damn criminals.
Well,
and the public always pays. They always pay for the ratepayers. We ratepayers have paid something like, what is it? I don't know how many, 20 million or something. And the power rates have gone up because we're paying because the plant is a screw up, and now they want us to turn it on, which will cause mass evacuations. How nuts is this?
Well, now I've had time. You asked me to look into this particular article that I found and sent back to you about what this insider engineer was talking about, and I did have time to analyze what he was saying, and what I believe that he's talking about was that the plant, even on residual heat removal or shutdown cooling, is in jeopardy, and I'm going to say only to the extent that there's fuel in the reactor core right now. And it wouldn't be any worse than anywhere else. It's not a great condition for the plant to be in. However,
what he said was I saw the report too. What it said was this reactor, even on its cooling phase now, not generating power, is losing containment as we speak and increasingly releasing radiation as it is now, not in the future, now, and it is going to continue increasing to the point where it's going to take off and massively release radiation even if we don't start it. And if we started, you said, it's immediately going to go critical and we're going to have a massive China syndrome where the thing's going to lose containment completely.
Yeah, and I've analyzed that. The only way that can happen if there's a back leakage from pure water from the secondary side into the primary side.
That's what he said, though. He said that. He said the primary and secondary are not separated because the tubes are banging and the fuel seal lines are leaking right now, and they're going to get worse just with time. Just sitting there with the boiling water reactor still circulating water, they're literally degrading as we speak with neutron bombardment, with aging, with heat, and with bad design.
And as I said, I don't totally disagree with him. I think the time frame is. I think we have a little more time than that before that happens.
Yeah, but he put a time frame up there to.
I do not agree with restarting San Onofre until we know exactly that we can actually fix the problem, and I'll stand on that.
It can't be fixed. They need to shut her down. Chris, I want you to repeat what you said on the break about San Onofre, and then I want to get into Fukushima Daiichi, because the new normal now is 3 times background, which means that the entire northern hemisphere is now a hazmat site. So please repeat. You did an amazing job on the break, but I want you to repeat that for everybody listening. In this example, by the way, in San Onofre, you can repeat along the pneumatic fault system of all those reactors.
Chris has warned us of everything that's happening a long time ago. He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, okay, go ahead, Chris, and tell us.
Only on this one subject, guys. But on this one, but honestly, what this fellow is trying to do, the inside engineer is warning about a dilution event. We call it a dilution event of the primary side and a subsequent loss of shutdown margin to shutdown. And
right.
And he's got a valid concern.
Right. You mentioned about borinated water. Basically, you have to have borinated water at a certain parts per million in order to keep the nuclear reaction from going critical. And if you've got a leak, so please give that summary because that's important. People understand.
So if you have a borated water system that has to be approximately 2,200, 2,500 parts per million at all times to keep the reactor safe from restarting by itself, that is going critical by itself. What this fellow is saying, that the secondary side that's only separated from the primary side by tubes that have holes in it now could be diluting the primary side, diluting it to a point where you have less than 2,500 parts per million of boron or boric acid. And he's not wrong. Now listen, there are ways that you monitor for that, and there's ways that, but he's trying to talk about a catastrophic failure of multiple tubes just going all at once. And I don't know if that's likely to happen anytime soon, but you still should not run San Onofre. You should not take it critical. They should not take it critical and try to run it until they know that they have it exactly fixed. And to that, I've not been satisfied, and neither have been many of my peers have been satisfied that they nailed it and that they have a complete fix on it. So so if they do go to a restart, then that is more likely to happen then with other complications. So
Chris, let me ask you something. If they go to restart, they increase the pressure on the piping, correct?
Well, of course. Yeah, and some.
Well, and the piping is decayed and has holes in it, so you increase the possibility or likelihood of a catastrophic failure on multiple pipes, right?
Right. So you got to end up with a leak, and you lose the ability to control the reaction, and it goes critical in China syndrome.
And that is why I do not recommend, nor do my peers recommend restarting San Onofre at this time, and they're not going to. And if you see that other article, now this is something else I said. I told you this was going to be an important article or an important event because it's going to cost a lot of money to fix, more money than than a supplier would have. And I said, I don't know how the ratepayers are going to get screwed on this one, but it sounds like that.
We already are being screwed, by the way. Our bills are ridiculous. I want you to switch over to Fukushima, because Fukushima is this, I call it the Fukushima Zilla monster. This damn thing is getting bigger, and the regular snooze-tainment, garbage news, I call the Cartoon News Network, etc., they're doing nothing. In fact, they're doing less than nothing. And anybody raises an issue to say, well, there's just another conspiracy theorist. No. We're monitoring this, and I am completely freaked out by the fact that I see the IAEA doing nothing, the U.S. government doing nothing, Obama walking around Texas hats now, trying to act like he's still campaigning, pretending he's some kind of celebrity there with Beyonce and Jay-Z. It's just disgusting. I contact senators like Senator Feinstein here in California, Senator Wyden, to try to get plume analysis in commercial airline jets by having a data logging Geiger counter set up in the jets so we can actually start doing three-dimensional modeling of plumes. I'm going nowhere. It's like we talk to these idiots, we raise questions that need to be raised.
People, they don't care.
Well, they're going to care when I sue their ass off, because I'm going to tell you there's a lot of people that if they even try to start San Onofre, but we need to sue the federal government for not dealing with the fact America is now a hazmat zone. And it's not just America. The Kuroshi Current is now carrying that across all the way to the Alaska fisheries.
Seafood out of the Pacific, and I won't eat seafood out of the Gulf of Mexico.
Right. Well, here's where we're going.
I don't know exactly where the seafood come from, and I love seafood. Absolutely.
Well, no, I won't eat it. I'll still eat it if I take my radiation detector over and it doesn't go click click. Because I take Nutrimeds. I take my Nutrimeds.
And see if it glows. And
No, mine. Listen, the radiation detector, the Inspector Plus, the Inspector EXP are so sensitive. If your fish is bioaccumulated any radioisotopes, it's going to click at you. So, so tell us about Fukushima, Chris.
Okay.
This is so nuts what's going on there. And literally the entire world is being poisoned. Not just the Northern Hemisphere, by the way. The entire world is being poisoned by Fukushima now. And all they need is a really big damn earthquake, and the entire place is just going to collapse. It's just... we're going to have
Unit 1, after we clamored that they need to cover Unit 1 to prevent all the cleaner rainwater getting in and coming out contaminated and all that, they did actually build the covers up, just like I predicted they would have to do. I mean, it's not really a prediction. It's just, it was the next common sense step. It's something I would have done, and they did that. But now they really need to take the cover off to start thinking about how they're going to remove the fuel, the damaged fuel and the spent fuel pool. If you go back, you'll know that I said I'm most concerned about the spent fuel, which is just, it's no longer in a viable spent fuel pool.
But they can't even lift it, right? Because it will fall apart if they try to lift the rods.
Yeah. We got to find that out. I mean, that's something that we don't know everything about. There may be
we have 4 factors that I see, and I want to see if there's additional ones. We have subsidence because they put millions of gallons of tons of water underneath the entire facility, so there's subsidence and liquefaction of the understructure. We have a corium that now is well below the reactors, that's down somewhere between here and China. That's literally China syndrome. We have neutron bombardment, which is changing the crystal structure of the metals and the other materials, including concrete. And the last factor we have is we have heating and melting by hydrothermic activity causing heating, which is literally destroying the integrity and fusing things together. So these pellets, for example, in the fuel rod assemblies are literally becoming one fused mass. It's all twisted, so you can't even pull the fuel rod bundles out. Are there additional factors, Chris? Because to me, this is not something that's going to ever be pulled apart. It has to be encased in a sarcophagus, and you have to vent out the hydrogen forever, and you have to be able to turn it to solid waste. Nothing's been done. No corium catcher, no seawall, no nothing. Nothing has been done. They go home on the weekend. That's what they do. They go home on the weekend.
That's right. And the analysis is that if you take the cover off, which they need to do so they can get access to the pool, they've been trapping and accumulating, raising the concentration of certain radioactive gases and some particulates, in some cases from damaged fuel. And now when you take it off, you burp it all out, just like an old Tupperware commercial, right?
Well, think about it this way, and I want this, by the way, I want this little blurb I'm going to just give right now. I've got this spiritual word I got to give. Think of Fukushima and the inaction by the United Nations and the NATO and America and all these nations as the genetic and a radiological abortion of the human race. That's what we're seeing. The globalists and the satanic overlords are aborting all of us. And by the way, I remember a sign I saw back years ago in 1992 when I was traveling around the country dealing with pro-life issues, talking to people, and they had a sign in one place. It was actually in Prince Edward Island, Canada, and they had a big X over 2 elderly people. 1992 was over 2 babies. What they're planning is they're already in Japan. And by the way, they're having heart attacks and strokes, infertility, small for dates, thyroid failure, neonatal cretinism, neonatal hypothyroidism, which is, by the way, 300 to 400% more in America now. It's nuts. People don't understand that the entire northern Japan is becoming a dead zone. And that radiation, by the way, in a few short years, will be just as high, not just on the West Coast. Don't think, that's poor West Coast. No. That radiation determines on where it falls by rain. It could be more radioactive in Pennsylvania or Czech Republic than it is in the West Coast. So, as they say in the military, we are screwed and tattooed.
Well, I think it's one of several population reduction programs currently running.
Yeah, so what's happening, and I'm going to repeat this again, the inaction by all of our governments at all levels, including the United Nations, is a radiological abortion of the human race. And believe me, we're not just talking about the unborn, we're talking about anybody. You could be 90. Is to say you're not too late, not too old, to be aborted by satanic global elite. This is a radiological abortion.
Get right with God.
Disgusting. Just disgusting. Pray to God. Get down on your face. God help us all.